Okay, we're 4 o'clock. Cindy, are we okay online? Thank you. So we'll call this meeting to order. We have opening remarks to start with. So welcome to the hybrid in-person and virtual meeting of the Committee of Adjustments for the Township of Central Frontenac. Just so everyone is aware, members of the public may join in person or virtually. For those of you who may be new to the Committee of Adjustments, my name is Philip Smith and I'm the chair of the committee. We also have Danny Meeks with us, Bill Everett, Cindy Kelsey, Lynn Clagus, Craig Middleton, and Susan Irwin. Cindy Deachman, our deputy clerk, will assist us as the meeting host. We are also joined by our planning staff. The format of the meeting will follow the agenda posted online. Staff have also prepared a presentation for everyone to follow along with during the meeting. This will be shown on the screen. For each application with a public hearing, we will follow this format. I, as the chair, will introduce the file so everyone knows where we are on the agenda. The planner will provide an overview of the application. We will then ask if there's any comments from the applicant or their agent. Committee members may then ask staff and the applicant or their agent questions, if any. The public will then have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments. I encourage that you ask any questions you may have. The committee will then deliberate and vote on the application. Voting will take place with members of the committee raising their hand or verbally confirming if attending online. I will then state whether the vote was carried. All members of the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the new applications. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission at this meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Central Frontenac before a decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Please note that as of January 1st, 2023, only persons specified in the Act are permitted to appeal consent and minor variance applications. Township staff will be in touch following the meeting and will be forwarding a copy of the decision within 15 days to the applicant and anyone who has requested to be notified. Should you have any questions after the meeting, we encourage you to reach out to staff. The applicant, the minister, or any prescribed public body who has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of making the decision or date of notice appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal against the decision of the committee by filing with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee a notice of appeal. I will now ask Cindy Deachman to provide an overview of how members attending virtually can participate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once the meeting is open to the public, the chair will ask if anyone has any questions or comments. Members of the public who are attending virtually will be asked to use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen. This will alert us that you would like to speak, and we will then notify the chair that someone is wanting to speak. We'll proceed to move you over to unmute your microphone, and you will receive a notification that the microphone has been unmuted. Please wait a second after unmuting before speaking. If you are calling in by phone, please use the *9 feature when you would like to raise your hand during the meeting. You will hear a prompt on the phone that you have raised your hand, and then you will be notified when your microphone has been unmuted. This afternoon, it looks like we have 5 folks who are joining us remotely and several in person as well.
Thank you, Cindy. In the unlikely account that we have connection issues and the meeting cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting will be postponed and staff will be in touch with each applicant. A notice will also be posted on the township social media, letting you know. So with that, we'll move on to the agenda and we'll be looking for an approval of the agenda. And we have a resolution moved by Lynn Clagus and seconded by Susan Irwin that the agenda be adopted as, and there's no minutes, as presented. All in favor? Carried. And we have a resolution that is moved by Susan Irwin, thank you, and Lynn Clagus that the minutes of the April 13th, 2023 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Carried. And sorry, at this time, I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interests and general natures thereof by any members of the committee. Seeing none. Okay, and we have previously deferred items, and we'll be looking at application A0123 Hughes. So if we can
All right. So as the committee is aware, and for the members of the public in attendance, this application was previously before the committee in February of this year. It was deferred at that time to allow an opportunity for Quinte Conservation Authority to make a visit to the site to measure and map the 1 in 100 year floodplain, as they did not have accurate information for this property and wanted to ensure that the proposed expansion did not encroach into the setback required for that floodplain. So as you can see on the screen, this proposal is an application for permission to expand an existing legal non-conforming dwelling. Currently, the dwelling has a footprint of 120 square meters, including attached decks, and a minimum water body setback of 15.7 meters to the high water mark of Big Clear Lake. The proposal is to demolish the existing structure, which is shown here on the screen with the red outline, and reconstruct and enlarge the dwelling to the hatched outline underneath. The part of the existing uncovered deck will be incorporated into the new interior dwelling. A porch will be added on the non-water side, and then a new deck will be constructed slightly closer to the water than existing. So currently the uncovered deck has a minimum water body setback of 19.7 meters or 21.2, depending on which angle you look at. It's an irregular shoreline. And that setback will be reduced to 18.7 meters at a minimum. There'll be no change in the setback for the dwelling. This application was circulated for review by, or not circulated for review, sorry, by the Septic Approval Authority. As if we just flip back here, the existing septic system is located between the house and the rear lane access, and that's greater than 30 meters from the high water mark of Big Clear Lake. The applicants have indicated they'll be replacing this septic system with a new and enlarged system that is sized appropriately to accommodate the enlarged dwelling. And no minor variance was needed, as that system is located more than 30 meters from the high water mark of Big Clear Lake. On this next slide, you can see this is a photo of the existing cottage and sloping down towards the lake. This is the uncovered deck side. So the addition will come closer towards the photographer's point of view in this. As I said, this was circulated to Quinte Conservation and they requested deferral in February. They have since been out to do a site visit. They've mapped the floodplain and measured the setback of the addition to that floodplain, and have determined that it does not encroach into their minimum 15-meter setback from the floodplain, and therefore they have no objections to this application as submitted. There have been no public comments received with regards to this application. Sorry. Again, this is just reiterating that they have been out and it does meet the minimum requirements for Quinte Conservation. The homeowners will need to apply for a permit from Quinte as it is within their regulated area, but they do not have objections to the expansion. Planning staff are recommending approval as submitted at this time, subject to the comment or the conditions in the planning report, which mostly involve site things during construction for silt fencing and limiting impact of construction debris away from the water and such as that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant or an agent?
Yes, I'm going to move over the applicant's agent.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Tracy Zander. I'm a planner from Zander Plan. My office prepared the application package and the sketch for your consideration today. Just wanted to identify myself and be available if you have any questions. And I believe the property owner is also joining remotely if you have questions of her. So I have nothing to contribute. Your planner has covered the application thoroughly. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And we do have the applicant as well. I'll allow her to talk. Okay, I've allowed you to speak. Can you unmute your microphone, Mrs. Hughes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I agree with what Tracy said. And the overview was accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions of the committee? Seeing none, is there anybody in the public that have any comments?
Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak? Can you use the please raise hand feature at this time? We see no one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So with that, we have a resolution moved by Lynn Clagus, seconded by Susan Irwin. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the permission requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent or purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in a use of property which is lawful non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for the decision. The minor variance application A0123 Hughes for the property located at part lot 13, concession 9 in the geographic township of Kennebec, 1228 Reagan Lane, to enlarge an existing non-compliant structure through the demolition and reconstruction and enlargement of the structure be approved, subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report, and that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant and any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, our next application that was deferred is B0423 HI, Daryl Kennedy, creation of a new lot in Hinchinbrook.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My name is Dimitri. I'm one of the planners at the County of Frontenac. And so application B0423 HI proposes to create a new waterfront lot from a property located at part lot 17, concession 1, and part lot 16, concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook, municipally known as 1502 Ball Road. This application was also deferred by the committee at the March 9th meeting in accordance with the comments that we received from technical agencies. At that time, both the Conservation Authority and the Septic Review Authority were unable to assess the property due to snow cover. These technical comments have now been received, and staff believe that the application is ready for a decision. So just as an overview, the application proposes to create a waterfront lot that's about 2.1 hectares or about 5.2 acres in area. It'll have approximately 182 meters or just under 600 feet of frontage onto St. Andrew Lakes, and about 250 meters or 820 feet of frontage on an existing private right-of-way that connects to Ball Road near the terminus of Ball Road. That right-of-way was created in 2018 as a result of consent application B0218, which also saw the creation of another waterfront parcel just to the south of the lot that's proposed to be created. You'll see that in the map when I flip the slide. The subject property that's proposed to be severed is zoned as rural and waterfront residential in the township zoning bylaw, and it's designated rural and waterfront area by the official plan. The area proposed to be severed is designated as waterfront area by the official plan, and it's zoned accordingly as waterfront residential, or RW for short. The property that's proposed to be severed is characterized by a Conservation Authority regulated slope, and it's also bisected by a watercourse. So although the lot is fairly large, only about 1.5 acres of it is actually developable due to the slope, as well as the regulated setbacks from the slope and the watercourse. So as far as the technical comments go, the Septic Review Authority had no concerns with the identified development envelope. The development envelope is identified here on the northwest corner of the lot. The Septic Review Authority found that soil conditions are adequate for the installation of a septic system. However, granular fill importation may be required, as many other lots do in the township. Any technical details with the installation of the actual septic system will be dealt with at a future building permit stage. So this application isn't proposing a construction of a new dwelling, just the creation of a lot at this time. Quinte Conservation Authority did not identify any concerns. They concluded that the building envelope that the applicant has proposed can support a development without being impacted by slope or erosion or flood hazards. One thing to note is that when Quinte went out on site, they had marked the seasonal high water mark from St. Andrew Lakes using fluorescent flagging tape. The applicant and future property owners should be aware that if any site alteration is proposed within 45 meters or about 150 feet of that flagging tape or the seasonal high water mark of the lake, that a conservation authority work permit is going to be most likely required. This includes things such as grading, excavation, filling, and of course, construction. County planning staff found that the proposed application complies with the township official plan as well as the township zoning bylaw. We don't anticipate any negative impact on water quality, given the appropriate setbacks from the lake, or the visual character associated with the water body itself. The one thing I do want to highlight with respect to township official plan policies is regarding this existing right of way. When a new infill lot or a lot that's proposed to be created on an existing right of way, there are two things that need to happen. The entire portion of the existing right of way needs to be upgraded to a standard that would allow for emergency vehicle access. And number two, the entire frontage of the lot proposed to be created, the ROW along the entire frontage of the lot proposed to be created needs to be constructed in accordance with the private lanes policies of the township official plan. So both these requirements will be confirmed by the township public works department upon signing of the certificate of official. And it is something that the applicant is aware of because they did receive a previous severance in 2018, and they were required to undergo the exact same process. The lane should be in good condition, so I'm not anticipating too many upgrades, if any upgrades are needed, but it is something that the Public Works Department is going to need to screen for should the committee make a decision today. Overall, there were no public comments received, and the county planning staff recommend approval of this application subject to the conditions. These conditions are fairly standard. They include that the lot must be surveyed in addition with the right of way along the frontage of the lot proposed to be created to the satisfaction of the township. In addition to the survey of that right of way, the appropriate wording needs to be included in the title document of that property that indicates that the right of way is to provide access to that new lot. I already mentioned the second and the third point, that the entirety of private lane leading up to the property, it needs to be upgraded to emergency vehicle standards, and along the frontage of the new lot, the private lane needs to be upgraded to private lane standards. The private lane must also be named in accordance with Township Bylaw number 2021-43 and 2002-125, and this is something the applicant can work with the clerk on. In addition to the naming, because the naming of the private lane is going to be changed, civic addresses along that private right of way will need to be changed. So the applicant is also responsible for civic addresses and the renaming of those addresses along the entirety of the lane. And of course, cash in lieu of parkland dedication and the sealing of any wells, abandoned wells on the property if they do exist. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Is there anybody here on behalf of the applicant or an agent?
Is anyone online wishing to?
Just sorry,
Is that
just
the applicant?
just no, just 1 second though. We're going to just check with the applicant. Just 1 second.
This application is the other one.
That's okay. I don't believe the applicant or their agent is on the
Okay.
hybrid.
Is anybody from the committee have any questions on this application? No? Okay, so go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, we'll just let her.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like you to know that this property that Mr. Kennedy is proposing to build houses on or have people build houses on is on Brash Lane. That has been Brash Lane forever.
Ma'am.
I don't want it changed because I'm the last of the Brashes on that lane and I've been there since 1972.
Ma'am, that application.
Before Mr.
The
Kennedy
application.
came.
The application we're dealing with right now is not the one on Brash Lane. This is on Ball Road in Hinchinbrook. So
It's on where?
Ball Road in Hinchinbrook. It's out by
Tell me
God,
where that is, sir.
near Godfrey.
Godfrey.
Yes.
What
So-
has that got to do with this building on Brash Lane?
There's another application later in the meeting for Brash Lane. So this is a totally different Kennedy.
It has nothing to do with Brash Lane.
Later in the agenda, there will be another application for Brash Lane.
Sorry. I'm
There's
sorry. I
two-
misspoke then. I
There's
didn't
two Kennedy
understand that's what you
applications
were
tonight.
saying. I'm sorry.
So we'll get to that application. So
Okay.
we'll let you have an opportunity to speak then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak to the Kennedy application?
I can't. Oh, if there's anyone else online that wishes to speak, can you use the raise hand feature, please? I see no one, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We have a resolution then moved by Lynn Clegg and seconded by Susan Irwin that consent application B0423HI Kennedy for the property located at part lot 17 concession 1 and part lot 16 concession 2, part 2 on registered plan 13R21797 geographic township of Hinchinbrook for a 2.1 hectare, 5.2 acre parcel as a new lot together with a right of way being approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. All in favor? Carried. And next we have a consent application B0523HI Clow, creation of a new lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That will be myself, Jenny Capusa, speaking to this application. This is an application for the creation of a new lot from an existing property on Fish Creek Road in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook. The proposed severed parcel will be just about 1 hectare or 2.5 acres in area. The subject property is currently designated rural and zoned rural and will remain as such after the severance. The proposed severed parcel contains an existing dwelling along with on-site septic services and accessory structures. The retained parcel will be approximately 75 hectares or 187 acres in area, and again will remain zoned and designated rural. There's a number of mapped wetlands, water bodies, and water courses that are located on the subject property that will stay with the retained parcel. Here on this next slide, you can see this yellow and red outline of this fairly large lot is the subject property. As noted, this is a map from the Conservation Authority showing where they've got mapped water bodies, wetlands, and features, which are well outside the area of the proposed lot. And there's sufficient area on the retained for development per the Conservation Authority. So again, this application was not circulated for septic approval as the proposed lot contains existing on-site services that are not in proximity to any newly created lot lines. And at 187 acres, it is highly likely there's a spot on the retained parcel to install a septic system should that property be developed in the future. This was circulated for comments to Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. They have no objections to the application as submitted. They noted no natural hazard concerns with regards to the proposed lot and the development area on that lot. There are some flood hazards on the retained parcel. However, again, given the size of the parcel, there were not any concerns expressed with regards to the ability to develop the retained parcel should that be desired in the future. There were no public comments received with regards to this application. Here on the next slide, you can see a slightly more zoomed in. This is the lot that's proposed. It has an existing entrance from Fish Creek Road. Fish Creek Road along this area kind of meanders in from one road allowance and joins up to another. It does have a width of approximately 17 to 30 meters, depending where you measure. However, given the location of Fish Creek Road, planning staff are recommending a road widening condition. Not that necessarily that would happen, but just have the surveyor measure that 33 feet from the center line of the traveled portion to ensure there is sufficient area on the north side of Fish Creek Road along the frontage of the severed parcel, to make sure that there's options for upgrades in the future if the township requires that. The planning staff are recommending, based on the comments received, that the committee approve this application, subject to any questions, concerns from the public today. And that is subject to conditions in the planning report, including having the property surveyed, outstanding taxes being paid, certificate of official signed within 2 years, the 5% parkland fee, and the road widening as noted.
You're good. Thank you. Sorry. Do we have the applicants or their agents with us this evening? Do we have any comments?
Is the applicant online and wishes to speak? I don't believe they're on.
No.
Does the committee members have any questions or comments for this application? No. Is there anybody in the public tonight that wishes to comment on the application?
If anyone online wishes to speak to this application, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If there's no comments or questions, we'll move on. There's a resolution moved by Susan Irwin and seconded by Lynn Klagas that consent application B0523 HI Clough for property located at Part Lot 21, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Hinchinbrook for a 0.99 hectare 2.45 acre parcel as a new lot be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant and any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. All in favor? Carried. Okay. So the next application is for consent B0923 Oso Kennedy. There's 2 applications, so we'll also be hearing about B-1023 Oso Kennedy as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application by Lawrence and Jesse Kennedy for a property with a municipal address of 1011 Crow Lake Road. It is bisected by Brash Lane and has frontage on Bob's Lake, Brash Lane, and Crow Lake Road. So as Chair noted, this is there are 2 severance applications, and I will discuss both as they're coming from the same subject parcel. So severed parcel A, B0923 OS, has approximately 550 meters of frontage on Crow Lake Road and 220 meters of frontage on Brash Lane. This proposed lot also has approximately 159 meters of water frontage on Bob's Lake. It'll have an area of approximately 11.81 hectares, which is about 29 acres or so. The subject property is designated rural and zoned a combination of rural and waterfront residential. Planning staff are not recommending any rezoning for this parcel, as the size of it allows both options for the rural uses as well as the waterfront residential uses. The area along the waterfront is zoned waterfront residential. So this way, future uses on this property could be agricultural if they were towards the rear. Just given the size of it, it does meet the policies and the sizing for agricultural uses, and leaving the waterfront residential zone along the waterfront does limit any agricultural uses, as I said, back towards Crow Lake Road, while still allowing development of the property. You can put a residence in either the residential waterfront zone or the rural zone, depending on what works. If you don't want agricultural uses, then that's not a problem either. There are mapped wetlands, water bodies, and water courses throughout the subject property, and they do bisect both severed parcels and the retained parcel. So the second parcel proposing to be severed, B1023 OS, has about 465 meters of frontage along Brash Lane and about 136 meters of water frontage on Bob's Lake, and will be about 5 hectares or 12.5 acres in area. So this one is currently also split zoned rural and waterfront residential. In this case, given its location and access from a private lane, and the size of it not meeting the minimum requirements for rural based on the current zoning, planning staff are recommending that this parcel, as a condition of consent, be rezoned to entirely waterfront residential, as that is the most appropriate use for this parcel, given its location. I will show more on the maps to try and help qualify this. So the retained parcel will also be a fairly large parcel. It'll have about 124 meters of frontage on Crow Lake Road and 870 meters of frontage on Brash Lane. So currently, Brash Lane bisects this property. The entirety of Brash Lane the surveyed area of it will remain with the retained parcel. It doesn't impede access or any of the other things for the existing access and rights of way over it, and it should not impede any access for other ones for that severed parcel. So both lots are going to be created together with a right of way over Brash Lane. While Public Works have evaluated parcel A with frontage on Crow Lake and there is an entrance, they're doing a right of way on both it should they want to have access from Brash Lane versus Crow Lake Road, depending on where they want to construct and what activities they want to do. So the retained parcel will be about 45 hectares or about 112 acres in area, and will end up being zoned only rural, just as all of the waterfront section of it is going to be split off from the subject property, as that's everything on the east side of Brash Lane. So here on this next map you can see, so the first one I talked about, B09, that has frontage on Crow Lake, is the more northern of these two parcels. So it's quite a lot of frontage on Crow Lake, Crow Lake Road, but the water frontage is Bob's Lake. A little confusing if you're not from the area to figure out where you are, but it's fun that way. So there's ample opportunity for development on this property. Again, the other parcel that I was talking about, the 12 acre or so parcel, is this one down here. So it does have water frontage on Bob's Lake, but a majority of it is in behind some of the existing cottage lots. This proposed lot will include an existing right of way that runs from Brash Lane north to access a number of waterfront parcels here. The creation of this lot and the inclusion of these rights of way will not alter anyone's existing access. If you already have a right of way over any parts of these lanes, the creation of these lots absolutely will not impact that. The retained parcel has an existing dwelling and accessory structures right up in proximity to Crow Lake Road, and those will remain with the retained parcel. That house is accessed directly from Crow Lake Road rather than Brash Lane, as it was my understanding is with the original farmhouse for the property. So both of these applications were circulated for review of septic suitability. The comments have not yet been received. However, the Septic Approval Authority has indicated they have been out and done their review and they don't have concerns. However, no formal comments have been received at this point. So planning staff are recommending that we include that as a condition of consent, that satisfactory comments regarding septic suitability are provided formally prior to the creation of any lots. Again, given their size, it is highly likely, and as indicated informally, there shouldn't be any issues with suiting a septic on these properties. These applications were circulated to Rideau Valley Conservation Authority for review also. would like to note that this is not the Green Bay portion of Bob's Lake, which is an at capacity Lake Trout Lake. This is outside that area. It is a separate area of Bob's Lake. So the Lake Trout Lake policies and setbacks associated with that are not applicable to this portion of the lake. The Conservation Authority did conduct a site visit on the 30th of March per their comments that we received. They noted there are several steep slopes on the site, including leading down to the water. However, conservation staff noted there was still significant areas on both parcels that were level and suitable for development. They did not have any concerns with regards to the identified natural hazards, as I noted the steep slopes, because of this other area where there's more than enough that is outside required setbacks and concerns for that. They did note that it's within the regulated area of Bob's Lake, and any alteration to any of the existing watercourses, wetlands, or anything along the shoreline does require prior conservation approval. They also noted that this property overlays a highly vulnerable aquifer. They do have some best practices on that, on how to limit infiltration of pollutants through cracked bedrock and other things. It's a little bit more technical than I'm able to, but there's more details on that in the Conservation Authority report if you'd like to know more. Public Works did go out and visit this site, as we are looking at creation of infill lots along a private lane. They noted that at this time, the condition of Brash Lane is satisfactory, as it's an existing private lane. The review is to ensure that there's adequate access for emergency services vehicles, both in grading and turns and other such. And it was noted that there was no concerns expressed from Public Works for any lane upgrades at this time. However, it was said, again, there's a condition of approval that this lane is satisfactory at the time of the stamping of the deeds to the satisfaction of the township. So if there's any concerns, it could be re-inspected prior to any deeds being stamped. But at this point, Public Works did not have any concerns with the condition of the lane. There were public comments received with regards to this application, and the public comments were concerns expressed regarding the maintenance of this private lane and whose responsibility that was on a financial side. Planning staff would like to note that while the Kennedys do own the property and the property over which the lane runs, the deeded access requires them to not inhibit access along this lane, which has not been an issue. But there is no provisions within that right-of-way access guarantee that speak to maintenance or responsibility financially. That is something that is generally done by those who use it. Unfortunately, without any legal agreements, there's not much the township or planning staff can really do in the context of this planning application. We can look at the quality of the lane and the access and make sure it's safe and stable at the time where we see it. Again, lanes like roads need upgrades, and the responsibility for costing is a civil matter between those who use the lane and the land over which it passes. So while planning staff absolutely appreciate the costs involved in maintaining private lanes, especially if there's issues with weather or other such things, it is something that is outside the scope of the planning application submitted today. So at this time, planning staff are recommending, based on the comments received, subject to any other comments heard from the public today or concerns from the committee, that the committee approve both applications as submitted and subject to the conditions in the planning report, including a survey or legal description of each new lot, including that right-of-way, payment of any outstanding taxes on the subject property, certificate of official signed within 2 years, 5% parkland fee for each new lot. And again, these are conditions for each of the lots. As noted, satisfactory septic approval comments and rezoning of the lot B1023, which is the 12-acre one, from a split zone to a single zone residential waterfront only. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. I understand the applicants are here. Would they like to make comments?
Do you? No.
No? Okay. Thank you. Does the committee members have any questions or comments at this time? No?
Do you want me to
Thank
do
you.
that?
Okay, I'm just gonna say it like it is, people, because I don't know what else to tell you. A property that Mr. Kennedy is proposing to put houses on overlooks a swamp. It has water in it right now, and he's calling it a lake, and it's waterfront. I disagree wholeheartedly because that swamp is no longer there in the fall of the year. It's nothing but mud. That's all it is. As far as the rest of his property on the east end, I don't know what he's doing with that, and I don't really care. It has nothing to do with me. But the upper end on the west side, I do have something to say. I don't think that he should be building houses along there without confronting the people that live there. There's 10 people that live in that area. Maybe we're only summertime people. Nonetheless, we're the people who look after the road. We're the people who maintain the road, and we pay for the road. He owns the road, so he says, but he's never put a cent into it, not a cent. So if he expects to build houses along that road without making some kind of a private entrance for the houses off the main road, that's fine. We don't care about that. He can do that, whatever he wants to do, but not off Brush Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public wishing to comment?
Are you aware of the beaver dam that washed out? If you, just so that everyone like that.
So you're asking about beaver dams that have washed out the road the past 3 years? That
They wash out Brush Lane.
People look at them.
Do their job.
if you're going to continue to comment, we'll have to ask you to come up to the mic because people online can't hear.
All I'm saying is when the beavers do their job and their dams burst, that water washes out Brush Lane entirely. And there is no access in or out until the road is repaired by the people who live there. And that's happened 3 times. I think Mr. Kennedy has provided 1 culvert. I'm not 100% on that. But other than that, the entire cost of Brush Lane is on those cottagers.
Yes, and I can absolutely appreciate the challenges associated, like you said, if it's washed out, you don't have the access. However, that is one of the challenges with living along a private lane where there's no existing legal agreement. This is why in 2016, the county undertook a private lane study that newly created lanes are subject to vacant land condominiums, and that way this exact situation doesn't happen. So they're required to be created now with an agreement that everyone pays in and who pays what and stuff.
Yes,
Unfortunately, with the existing ones,
that isn't in effect yet.
We don't have the ability under the Planning Act to retroactively require it. Otherwise you would all have to incorporate into a condominium corporation and pay dues and have formal structures. In recognition of this going forward, new ones do have specific structures. They do have to be constructed under. In this case, my understanding, again, this is something maybe a lawyer would have to have more information, but the legal responsibility for the person over which a lane passes is just to not physically stop access. They can't gate the lane, they can't lock it, they can't prevent you from maintaining or upgrading it sufficient that you're able to access the cottages. Unfortunately, my understanding is that they don't have any legal obligation to provide
So
cost towards that. Again, but so this is something where a lawyer would have to be involved as to whose legal responsibility it is for that maintenance. My understanding is as long as he's not physically stopping you doing what you need to do, that he's meeting the requirements of that easement. However, again, that's my sort of general understanding. A lawyer definitely would have more ability to look at what the provisions of the easement are and if there's any other things in there that I'm not aware of for who has to do what.
Okay, and going forward with new people moving in, if these lots are sold?
They'll be friendly and want to contribute to things.
Again, yes, you're welcome to do that. Under what I have ability to enforce, I can't make them contribute any more than I could make anyone currently contribute. And as I said, there's an option for the one along Crow Lake that they can get access directly from Crow Lake Road. So we're looking at one additional cottage that will be required to have access from Brash Lane. I really hope they're not mean and they work with you, but I don't know who that would be if it's being sold, and I don't have any way to make them buy into contributing to the maintenance, unfortunately.
Could these parcels of land be subdivided again and there would be more than just 2 cottagers that we're looking at?
At this point, they couldn't. The official plan limits it to a maximum of 2 severances from any parcel that existed as of 2008. So based on this parcel, these are the 2 lots, and unless, and
2
that's
houses, 2 lots.
2 houses, 2 lots, at this point, unless there's some sort of population study done or the official plans amended at some point to permit more severances. But right now, this is the maximum limit that could be done on this property.
Okay. Thank you. Janice Keller.
Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
I do have somebody online. I'm going to move over John Green. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
He hasn't done anything to say prohibit us from, going over the lane, using the lane, maintaining the lane. But what he has done is he hasn't maintained that beaver pond on his property, and that's what has damaged the property, the laneway access. And so like we've done the regular maintenance, kept the lane, and one way you could view it is when he hasn't maintained his pond properly and the water comes down and it washes out the lane, it's actually removing our access.
Potentially, I wish we could all control beavers and beaver dams and where they do their things and what they do and when they give out. I don't really have any idea of how you would maintain a beaver dam, if that's possible.
There's techniques where you could even put like pipes through the dam and have it so it maintains a lower water level and it doesn't prohibit things. But this is all stuff that's on his land. We can't go on it and do anything like that.
So thank you, Mr. Green. The committee's heard that the right of way is a civil matter between the Kennedys and the lot owners. So I think, if you're looking for Mr. Kennedy to assist you with, looking after the beaver dams, I would suggest that the group of property owners meet with Mr. Kennedy and see how you can cooperate to make that happen. Unfortunately, as Jenny has indicated, the committee does not have any control over the right of way as it sits today. Is there any other comments from the public?
If there's anyone else who wishes to speak, can you use the raise hand feature? I do have Anna. I'm going to allow to speak. Go ahead, Anna.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm also a property owner that I guess is entirely close to where I guess Mr. Kennedy is expecting to build or sell and have, I guess, whoever is going to own that property in the future to build. I'm also concerned because, and I know you've mentioned it's a civil matter, I guess, but our concern is if Mr. Kennedy isn't willing, like Mr. Kennedy is not willing to work with us. Other members of our group have tried to reach out to him numerous times, and it seems like he's just really unwilling, I guess, to correspond with us to find solutions. I don't know if that has any weight to anyone's decision.
So is that all the comments we have from the public at the moment?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I see no one, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions from the committee at this time? So no questions from the committee. So we do have two resolutions. So moved by Bill Everett and seconded by Danny Meeks, that consent application B0923 sorry. I'll start again. The consent application B0923 Oso Kennedy for the property located at Part Lot 1, Concession 7, Geographic Township of Oso for a 11.81 hectare, 29.19 acre parcel as a new lot together with a right-of-way be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report as amended to Brash Lane right-of-way as described 1039-080-030-18 505. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed, and that the certificate official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued, as required by the Planning Act. All in favor? Carried. And we have a resolution moved by Bill Everett and seconded by Danny Meeks, the consent application B-10-23 Oso Kennedy for the property located at Part Lot 1, Concession 7, Geographic Township of Oso for a 5.1 hectare, 12.53 acre parcel as a new lot together with a right-of-way be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report as amended to Brash Lane right-of-way as described 1039-080-030-18 505. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed, and the certificate of official issued within a period of 2 years after the notice of decision was issued, as required by the Planning Act. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chair, I do notice that Mr. Green has his hand up. I don't know if we want to allow him comments.
We can allow him to comment, but we've already passed the
Yes.
resolutions.
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
I was wondering if you could add a condition. It's for safety that Mr. Kennedy take some measures to ensure that the water level in his pond is properly maintained. There's, from a conservation point of view, there's many that you can look online. There's ways that you could help maintain the water level at a safer level. It's good for the beavers and it's safer for everybody in the area. We're not going to get trapped if the dam breaks and the road gets washed out. I think it's a good idea, and it'd just be an additional condition to help maintain the safety for everybody that's there.
So we've already passed the resolution, but Mr. Kennedy, would you be able to work with your neighbors to help control the beaver dam? If the neighbors are willing to assist you in that endeavor as well?
Yeah, we can control the amount of rainwater.
No,
Like a mountain.
no, but some of the suggestions we heard from Mr. Green was about controlling some of the water with flow pipes and stuff. So if they're willing to work with you, I think it's a good thing if neighbors can work together and try to resolve this. So if you're willing to do that, then I think that's a great thing to do.
We're willing to do that. But
No, they're creative little creatures. Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll carry on now for applications for minor variance and permission. We have application A0723 Sparrow. Who will be speaking with that one? Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was on the wrong screen. Just got to share that. All right. So this is an application combined for permission to expand an existing legal non-complying structure, as well as a minor variance for a reduction in side yard in correlation with that addition. This is for a property located at 1082 Horseshoe Lane in the township of Kennebec. So the proposal is to construct an addition to the existing dwelling. The addition will have a footprint of about 25 square meters or 268 square feet. As you can see on the slide here, the existing cottage is shown within the red outline. They have decks attached to that cottage towards the water. And the proposed addition is outlined in yellow here, and that's on the east side. Sorry, I'm very bad with east and west. South side. Excellent. So I was totally wrong in the directions. It's on the side of the cottage. We will go with that. The minor variance is to permit a reduction in the side yards. So the main building side yard setback is required to be 3 meters. Due to the layout of existing structures and the property and the topography and all of the things that go into construction, it was determined that a reduction from 3 meters to 2.13 meters would be required. So less than it's about 2.5 feet or so. And they're asking for that to facilitate the addition. You may ask, why can't they put the addition on the other side then? The layout of the cottage inside doesn't work with where they would want to do this. This is not increasing number of bedrooms. It's just increasing the area and sort of reconfiguring. So the bedrooms in the cottage are actually on the side opposite the addition. So significantly more work would have to be done to move it to the other side, as opposed to looking at reducing that side yard. The applicant did indicate they'd spoken to their neighbors who don't have any objections to this reduction. In fact, they have a cottage apparently that is fairly close on their side. And there's a line of trees that runs along that property line as shown in this sketch. Also, the neighbor did say that they look at the lake and not their neighbor's house, so they're not super concerned if they get closer, but that's more anecdotal than planning. This would enlarge the dwelling. So the existing dwelling has an area of 102 square feet or square meters, which is about 1,150 square feet. And that does include the attached decks to it. So it would enlarge the cottage, as I said, by about 268 square feet for that addition. It will not further encroach to the water. As you can see, it's set back slightly from the front face of that building. Quinte Conservation was circulated this application and noted they have visited the property for previous applications and other inquiries the property owners have made, and marked the high water mark more than once on the subject property. They have no objections to the application as submitted. They did note there's no further encroachment towards the water body than any of the existing structures. The addition is located outside the minimum setback to their 1 in 100 year floodplain. And however, due to its proximity, it will require a conservation authority permit for the addition prior to any construction or township building permit. This was not circulated for a review of septic suitability. A new system was installed on the subject property in 2019, and the Central Frontenac chief building official reviewed the septic documents that were provided with regards to that installation and determined that based on the size of the increase, there was no need for a formal performance review at this time. So there was no comments required from South Frontenac or the Septic Approval Authority. There were no public comments received with regards to this application. Planning staff are recommending approval of this application as submitted and subject to comment or the conditions in the planning report, which similar to the one on Hughes, mostly includes ensuring there's adequate shoreline protection during construction, silt fencing, all the construction materials away from the lake, things like that. And that's all.
Thank you, Jenny. Is the applicant or their agent here for any comments?
I'm here, David Sparrow, answering the questions.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions? Anybody from the public or online?
If members of the public wishes to speak, can you use the raise hand feature? I see no one, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a resolution moved by Bill Everett, seconded by Danny Meeks. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of a change in the use of the property, which is lawful non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for the decision. That permission and minor variance application A0723 Sparrow for the property located at part lot 7 and 8, concession 5 in the geographic township of Kennebec, 1082 Horseshoe Lane, to allow for the expansion of an existing legal non-conforming structure through the construction of an addition to the structure. The addition shall have a maximum footprint of 24.9 square meters, 268 square feet, and a minimum water body setback of 10.3 meters, 33.8 feet. Also a reduction in side yard to a minimum of 2.13 meters, 7 feet for the construction of the addition described above, be approved subject to the conditions and reasons noted in the planning report. And that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any other planning business to come before the committee tonight?
No.
And with that, we have a resolution moved by Danny Meeks and seconded by Bill Everett, that this meeting be adjourned until 4 p.m. June 8th, virtually and in person at the Oso Hall, 1107 Garrett Street, Sharpeville Lake. All in favor? Carried. So thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.